Right, first video for first Descendant, and I'm just going to go over the modding card system. Now the modding card system, if you've ever played Warframe, is very familiar. If you've not played Warframe, then it can be a little bit daunting. There's a lot going on, but once you sort of get the hang of it, it's very, very simple. Now I'm just going to use Kyle here as an example. Simply just because he has achieved one of the worst scalings in the game. Like, I'm probably just wrong here because I've not really given him a lot of effort. He's only level 14 at the moment, but I just can't get him to work. And the main reason being is because of his mod scaling. And the easy way to show this here is I've got, typically for a standardized character, Descendant, frame, I keep calling them frames as well, I'm not sure if anyone else is, you would want increased in shield, increase in HP, and increase in defense. These are going to be like your three core things: health, def, armor, essentially, and shield. This is going to help you stay alive. From here you can add other things, like I've got HP concentration, which also increases my health, as well as the crit rate of my skills. Pretty handy. Tech specialist increases his tech skill power because he is a tech character. He scales with tech. I've got cooldown, a bit more cost, strong mentality for my resource cost reduction. Why that's at max and it's only 26% is a bit weird. And you can get nimble fingers for cooldown, things like this. But most of the time it's increase in health, increase in shield, health, and then defense. And then from here, cooldown, resource cost reduction, little bit of extra bonuses you can put in. Some things have like an increase in skill duration and an increase in defense. They, depending on how you want to look at it, they can be worthwhile, but it's also going to be depending on the character. I say this simply just because, despite the fact that he has a increase in health, obviously I've got a lot more in health. I mean, this is nearly maxed out. It's got one more and it's maxed out, and then I've got this which is maxed out. Like, I've got a lot more into his health. His health is 1,000. He has 1,600 defense. He's only got 140 shield. Even if we go back into this, remove the shield, goes down to 112. However, if we health, there's my two health ones. Remove them. Come back out, he has 500 health. So you're going to get a lot more benefit from health. On a character like him, it is advisable to put shield on, but you're going to get a lot more from health. This is what I mean by scaling, because obviously it's going to be a percentage of 500. So if I increase a 50% increase in health, I'm going to go to 750-ish health. If I do a 50% increase in shield, I'm going to get 160. Hopefully that kind of clears it up. So it is worthwhile looking at these. As I was trying to show, like, health is here. So that's 503. If I give that a 50% increase, that's like 750 health. And then my max shield, obvious. So knowing how they're going to scale just by looking at things like this can tell you probably how much of a priority you want to put into it. Because obviously at the moment, it's not completely true because we do have the capability to do it in the beta at the moment. The capacity for card at the moment, I'm at 75 out of 77. So I can increase one of these or two of these once or one twice. It's not going to be of great benefit. To increase, you go to, and then there's an item you can put in here. You can tell because they've got this icon. God, you're so loud. So if they've got that icon next to them, so obviously Jaber, I don't have one, so we'll actually do it on him because I want to use Jaber. I don't have one on Bunny or Viessa, despite what people are telling you. I feel like Bunny is very weak, and Viessa, I'll only really do it on the ultimate version. But yes, we come to Jaber. He has 47, so attach, and then, so this will put it from 47 to 67, and we're just going to increase. We're able to craft the energy activators, but we have been getting quite a few of them. throughout just playing. And then from here, before I do anything, I'm going to come back. He has 350 health, 65 shield, 700 armor. So he's going to scale very well with armor, like very well. So I would actually argue there's no point really putting any shield on him, at least at the moment. When you level up a character, their leveling scaling can give them something else. Like when he levels up, he might get 1 health, but might get 4 shield. So by the time he's level 40, there might be something different to show for it. But overall, at the moment, when leveling, I wouldn't even bother putting a shield mod on him. Health and armor. 350 health, 720 armor, 65 shield. That 65 shield is not enough to work with at this point. Also, when you do a module, one of the first things you should try and level up is something like short sword. I'm not sure. There's a few of these. I've forgotten what they're actually called. But you've got kicking, tonfa, punch, shock punch, and they've got short sword as well. It's absolutely worth leveling these up because the moment I put this in, what's the capacity on the right hand side? It's 67. If I put this in, 77. So in terms of modding your characters or cards for your characters, pay attention to what they are, because sometimes the game will throw you a curveball. If we can very quickly go to, I'm sure people have seen her by now, but if we go to Glay, this is my main character at the moment, just because she's been able to get through everything I need. She has 5,000 armor, near enough 3,000 health. 5,000 armor, near enough 2,000 health. And when I come to mod her, I've got health and crit rate, defense, health, skill cooldown and skill cost. Essentially a damage mitigator, but it also does reduce my maximum health, which I'm fine with. I've got so much of it. Being able to mitigate some of that damage is going to be useful. The rate in which I heal, as well as skill cost. Increase in defense, but negative shield. I don't have shield. Like, Glade does not have shield at all. Skill duration and increase in defense. Resource cost reduction and skill cooldowns. I've been able to basically get through so much of the game with this. I can solo the defense and, well, not the defense, the mine blocking with her. She just lives through everything. There's like no stopping her. Now, I can increase her further, which we'll get into in just a little bit. Because, as you can see, I'm at 80 out of 80. I'm not sure why some of the others are at like 77 and why she is 80. Not too clued into this. Maybe it's, I don't know, something with what I've done and not paid attention to. But yeah, typically you should be able to get these to 80 capacity before anything else happens. And then if we want to increase them further, this is the part where you kind of need to get to endgame. And one of my biggest criticisms so far is you essentially, for those that have played Warframe, you need to get Former. What they are in this are going to be crystallization catalysts. Now, the materials are pretty easy to get. So, Kingston mine blocking, you'll get loads of them. For this, just doing the missions on sterile lands. The bosses at the end of missions have a chance to drop one of these data processing circuits. Hypercube, doing the mine blocking or resource defense on Vespers will give you pretty easy access to these. You can get them. They're not like super common, but they're common enough to not be an issue. These are kind of my issue at the moment, as you can probably tell. I've got 0 out of 6. I did have them, but the real kicker is this. The acquisition is going to be from Dead Bride Amorphous Material 9. We need to go to Intercept Hard, Dead Bride, Amorphous Material, well, all of Amorphous Material 9 for all of the, well, not all, number 9, all of the Amorphous Material for the Hard Colossi will drop the Crystallization Catalyst Blueprint. Hopefully you can see it there. It's the second from bottom, and likewise again. And then if you come to Pyromaniac, even he has, again, second from bottom, Crystallization Catalyst Blueprint. This is the part that is going to be a huge stumbling block, because in order for you to actually feel comfortable doing these colossi, you're going to want those crystallizations. And annoyingly, the game actually only gives you one. If you're up to this point and you've played since the start of the beta, the game would have given you one. That is it. And depending on how you were feeling at the time, like for example, I was feeling pretty frisky. I spent mine. Hopefully you can see this icon here on Freyna. I spent mine on Freyna. Ideally, you don't want to spend it on a character yet while you're leveling. You're going to want to put it on a weapon, which we're going to go into now. Alright, first of all, I'm actually just going to change weapon because I've been getting a lot of interesting feedback about my use of Thundercage with Glay. Right, when it comes to weapons, 2 mods that I would say are near enough a must, just because they're going to help you overall, are going to be the concentrated ammo support. This increases your magazine size, and then the expand X, it could be general rounds, could be impact rounds, whatever, expand X magazine for an increase of 50%. Now, annoyingly, when I first did this, I thought this was my magazine. Expand general magazine. There's me thinking I'm going to get a 50% increase in my magazine. It's not. It's your ammo pool. Must be a translation thing, but this is your ammo pool. These are the 2 mods that I would highly recommend. After this, it's mostly just damage, and depending on how you want to go or what weapon it is, might depend on how you actually want to put that damage in. So as you can see, I've got magazine and crit damage, overall attack and crit damage, recoil, which isn't really required, but it's just enough to help out the SMG at this point. It's also why it's only at level 1, because I had other priorities. Deadeye, which increases my accuracy as well as my attack. On an SMG, I find the accuracy to be very, very handy. Stabilizer, which is a reduction in recoil and again more crit damage. Concentrated fire, which weak point damage and again crit damage. Reduction in reload, but it's also reducing my accuracy. Overall attack, this is just base attack. Rifling reinforcement is pretty quick, easy to find. It's just basic attack. General expanded rounds, as I've gone over, it increases my overall ammo pool. And then the real kicker for me is marksman. This is crit chance, essentially. This has been kind of a little lifesaver. Now, annoyingly, I'm not too sure how crit chance works in this game, because if we look here, it says firearm critical hit rate, 36%. This is at 31. So if we remove this, it drops 31. Pretty simple. Put it back in, problem solved. However, if we go to weapon info, which is on the tab, firearm critical hit rate, 27.2. Now, I keep getting mixed messages with this, and the weirdest one, if you've managed to get a bit further into the end game, is if we go to Divine Punishment. If you've unlocked Divine Punishment, as we can see, it's mostly the same setup, near enough the exact same, just in a slightly different order. Apart from I've gone for a little bit more weak point damage. But again, I do have Marksman for 31% critical hit damage. Firearm critical hit rate, 36%. If we go to the tab, firearm critical hit rate, so that's crit chance, 13.6. I'm not quite sure what is going on here. However, when utilizing this weapon, it does feel like I only have a 13% crit chance. And if we remove this, it only drops 3.1%, which is weird because this is a 30%. So if we just back out and save this real quick, go to tab, it's almost as though the base firing rate of Divine Punishment is 10.5. And if we give it a 31% increase, it's not going to add 31%, giving us 40. It's going to give us 31% of this 10.5, which is a 3.1. At least that's what I'm thinking. So, although this is kind of annoying, because I like my crit, man. Come on, give me crit. At the same time, it does also really balance out the weapons, because if you have been a fan of Warframe, you'll know that we were able to get to like 240% critical hit chance on some weapons, which was insane, allowing us to essentially get a double crit. Gave us some severe power creep. Now, this does solve that issue, but at the same time, I feel like this is a bit too heavy-handed. So potentially going down the crit route with some weapons is not going to be worth it. It is going to be a thing of having to have a look at individual weapons to see what their base crit is, and then readjusting from there. As you can see, I've got Marksman on here again. Crit rate is 27.2. If I remove it, I lose 6.2. So some weapons are going to have a better crit than others. Generally speaking, again, this is PvE, so all you're going to want to do is more and more damage, but it's also going to depend on how you look at that damage. Something like LMGs, we'll just cancel that, and then if we can get Thunder Cage back up. Surprisingly, SMGs are actually a little bit lower on the crit side, but again, if we just remove Marksman, 6.2. This kind of makes sense. Yeah. Another thing to note as well, luckily I don't have to do spreadsheet and math calculations to show the DPS of weapons in this game. The DPS shown here, 11,059, is just the base DPS. If you want to look at the actual weapons true DPS, you have to open it up, and as you can see, it's now 22,099. However, this is still quite convoluted because it's not going to take into account my critical hit damage, which is here, 2.5 times 2.5. And it's also not going to take into account the weak point, which is a times 1.321. So it is going to be worthwhile paying attention. And ideally, I would say, when you get your crystallization, your former, I'm going to be calling them former for a while, don't do a dum-dum like I did and put it on a character. Put it on a weapon. Ideally as well, simply just because of how this LMG works, Enduring Legacy, if you've unlocked it, I would suggest formering this simply just because it reduces target fire resistance by up to 30%, and it also does do a little bit of fire damage itself. Put fire damage on it, like the actual card for fire damage, and then this will potentially help you when farming Dead Bride, because she's probably going to be the most farmable at endgame, and the reason you want to do this is she is very, very weak to fire. She's okay with thunder, she's very strong to ice, and she's strong to poison. So considering that once you're at the point where I'm at, and all you want is to farm her, you want to farm these materials, the Amorphous Material 9 and the Amorphous Material 12, and then you want to farm her, Enduring Legacy is going to be the best bet here, simply just because of how the mechanic of that weapon individually works. Anyway, hopefully this clears a few things up. I will be covering this a bit more. Have fun, good luck today. Bad for the health.